See you later.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a good
Bye.
week.
See you later.
See you on
Good
Friday.
luck.
Yeah.
See you on Friday, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Attach some of that thing into that, so that should be alright.
Is this one?
So you want the wire going around there, and so what I'll do is I'll get a screw.
Yeah.
Where's the wire? The wire there, that should be enough.
Okay, so I will leave it like that.
Okay.
Oh, that's very well.
Oh, these are the birds, yeah.
The gold is lovely against the red.
I know. I want maroon walls and like I can never own a house. I've got so much stuff, but I can't show it because it needs to be spread out a bit. What do you think of that at the bottom?
The cushion,
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah.
Can I go through there, through there, through there?
Through there to through there.
Yeah, nice.
That's quite strong. Okay, well I make jewellery and I sort of upcycle a lot of it. A lot of them are Victorian cameos, bovine stones and carved stones, semi-precious stones, a lot of coral, pearls and things like that. So I sort of emulate the sort of Victorian Georgian jewellery I really love that's really expensive but people couldn't really afford. So I try and upcycle and make it for not a lot of money and hopefully sell it on.
I've been careful not to stitch it right through on either
Yeah.
bit of fabric because both the board and the snakes have a double thickness. What made me think of snakes and ladders, what made me think of games? I must admit I was thinking about the theme for LGBT History Month around kind of medical healthcare, things like that, and I came into the gallery and I was having a little bit of a conversation with Peter. Something he said made me think, maybe I could use sort of some notion of a game here. And the piece is actually titled No Game because it's not a game trying to access healthcare, but the reality is that people are having these different experiences of finding it really hard to access healthcare, thinking that getting somewhere and then kind of sliding back or falling back. And it seemed like the old game of snakes and ladders was a perfect metaphor for that. So the background is in pink, white and blue, which is the trans flag colours. I did all of the snakes and the ladders and the design and the ironing on and the cutting out and everything, and my wife did the assembly, which was very much appreciated. In order to kind of put a little bit more to it in relation to games, I put a range of games that I used to play with when I was younger, particularly, got them from eBay, so that they were from round about the same kind of period as well that I would have been playing with them, and each of them I've modified in some way so that they are in some way, shape or form speaking a little bit to the theme, but in many instances you have to look quite closely to see what the modification is. So to give you a couple of examples, there's a Monopoly board there, and instead of the 4 London train stations, there's 4 gender identity clinics. In terms of Cluedo, the character cards have all been changed a little bit, whereas historically all the people with titles like Professor and Doctor and things were male. Well, they're not that way anymore, and they're not all using binary titles either. And in terms of the board, it's changed up for places like the study and the ballroom, which you find in traditional Cluedo, for places like the hospital and shared housing and classroom and on the street, for places where people might actually encounter violence. There are 4 images of 4 white trans men who were all either doctors or clinicians in the first half of the 20th century. Robert Allen, who was a radiologist, who was also the subject of another piece I made called Phoenix a few years ago. Michael Dillon, also known as Lobsang Jivalka, who was a doctor, a GP, then a ship's doctor, and then latterly a monk. Alan Hart, who was a doctor and a radiologist, and Ewan Forbes, who was a GP and personal experience as a white transmasculine person. That tends to be where I find some of my synergies. But I think it also reflects very much on who actually could get to become a doctor in those times, who could hold those positions, especially as a trans person in those times, because all of these, one way or another, were trying to fly under the radar at different times. In those sorts of senses. So yeah, that's a little bit about the piece.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant actually. Oh, and these are the...
Do you need a letter?
Used to be the first hospice in England that giving medicine treatment to HIV. They have a memorial garden, and that's like real ideas from. Like, look at the roots.
Gosh.
They were growing really, really good. This is more like a metaphor way we're saying like, yeah, lots of people passed away before. A lot of people died because lack of treatment. And later we're gonna put the soil on, and we also got the footprint. So all this footprint is like people walking from the past step by step, but there are patients, doctors, or people that donated money. And the grass will be growing as the shape of the footprint. The spirit is always there. And yes, they pass away, but they're always in my heart. We will not forget what happened, but we just will keep carrying on our lives, and everything gonna be more brighter and brighter.
It's much better because it's further towards you, and it doesn't look as disproportionate. And I think that it's better because that's kind of how people.
So definitely think that I learned a lot about what it actually, takes to make an exhibit, as opposed to. You kind of think it's easy, but it's a lot more work and a lot more hands-on. It's also very nice to see so many queer artists around doing all this, especially established queer artists.
I was just going to say that being queer is a protest, being black is a protest, being anything outside of the box of the social norm or the status quo is a protest. So happy to be here in a space.
Do what they torture, and now they do what they torture, and now they do what they torture, and now they do what they torture. Come on! They weren't saying I thought I caused it, so my fools that weren't forcing.
I'm a playwright and performer, and as our lovely MC said, I am performing a section from my show Future Queer for you tonight. The show is currently at the King's Head Theatre in Islington, very nearby. I want you to imagine it's 2071 and the whole world is queer. If anyone's wondering how the whole world turned queer, some drag queens went into a line.
Wonderful brown bag. Last year she was wearing a lot less than that, I must say. But she's fully clothed all in black and white. Wonderful. Green is this season's new look. And I definitely love that. Look at the quality there, feel the weight, and look at my lovely shoes, what they're gorgeous. Now, I don't know, can we buy it as a very modern fashion? So it's not a traditional song. Thank you for that. Look at that! Please, if you don't like threesomes, cover your eyes. But this is very, very colourful. Yeah. Three ladies together. That's it, yeah, very good. Welcome. Get in touch with us very afterwards and you get a new book. And now this lady, she's from Liverpool.
Belinda.
That's wonderful. It's gorgeous. The final viewing of the Herberts. There's two little Herberts together with our lovely husband.
Thank you, Peter. You really brighten up our slightly, at times, drab NHS setting, and it's always a treat to watch this exhibition building. You've really, really helped us with your 20 years of exhibitions here. Amazing.
We work within one of the NHS trusts within a mental health setting, and we understand the impact that that's had, and want to inject a note of seriousness amongst the fabulousness and joy of this evening.
The History Month theme this year is medicine, and we think it's important to remember the field of psychiatry and psychology has a quite literally shocking legacy in terms of our treatment of LGBTQ+ people. It wasn't just psychiatrists, but psychologists too, who were enthusiastic conversion therapists. In the words of one psychologist, Professor Jim Orford, who administered aversion therapy in Manchester whilst he was training, I look back with shock and shame on the aversion therapy program I took part in as a trainee in the 1960s. I apologise for my part in it. I feel ashamed. I apologise unreservedly. I am also pleased to say it no longer plays any part whatsoever in professional psychology in the UK, nor could it. We think there is an argument for a truth and reconciliation process and some reparative justice as to the treatment.
So to end our relatively short time here, we just wanted to say, be joyful, be proud, be kind, be angry, be the angelic troublemakers, be fully and wonderfully authentically human, and be proudly diverse.
She outcasted.
Where is the...
We'll figure it out one day.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guessed.
Try to fend him off. Kevin didn't know. They did a song together. That's
Imagine the scene. This is around the time that Christina Jorgensen came back from Denmark, having transitioned.
Face mask, which is kind of, it's dripping off my face. I'm kind of unsure whether to hold it to my face or not, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to let go of this mask, at risk of being not accepted, like how Glenn, feared that his wife would not love him if she found out this secret. Despite it being made in 1953, there's still elements of the film that I could find myself relating to. And they're talking about Glenda being, when Glenn's at home, he becomes Glenda, and that's why he's comfortable and happy. In my experience, sort of that gender exploration happened in private before I could expose it to the rest of the world. About a lot of my work that I make is based around this struggle, this sort of symbiosis between my art and my gender experience. I found it really interesting in the film about, they were saying that Glenda was a kind of character that Glenn made. And it made me think about myself in the past, where I was kind of figuring out my own gender identity, my identity as a trans man. When as a kid I was always drawing very androgynous characters, kind of creating these different realities for myself on the page that I couldn't yet embody myself. Thankfully these days I've started hormones, and I'm raising money for my own top surgery, and these things I used to imagine, these characters, are now becoming a reality for myself.
This is inspired by fairy tales, comic books. It was inspired by a series of very profound losses I've experienced in recent months, but also ties in with my old professional life. I used to work with families, parents and children who had either lost a parent or a child. There was a real shortage of material around supporting the realities of less traditional families, including LGBT families, of which I was one back in the 1980s. And the point here is a reference to the book when Jenny lived with Eric and Martin, which caused the Tories to ban the promotion of homosexuality in school and led to a decade of very, very huge difficulty in finding any resources that could support families who were still going through traumas in those times. Also accessing healthcare, say as a co-parent or a non-legal guardian, because there was no possibility of being a legal guardian back then in the 80s. How different things are now, where hospitals will do their best, whatever type of family you are, they will support you when it comes to the really difficult times. And one of the most important things with children that experience trauma is that they get a chance to find a way to create a narrative of their life.
The postcard is part of a series called Greetings from Paradise, Hi Mom and Hi Dad. It's postcards that I decided to write to both my mom and dad who passed, one each, and it's going to be quite a few of them. I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about, to let them know things about me that I never shared with them, and to start a conversation that we never really had. But at the same time, I wanted to have a juxtaposition about like the sad part and the happy part of me, because there's a photograph of me in a very gay land, a happy land, where I can be myself, and I'm very happy about who I am and who I can be. Unapologetically and with a lot of fun as well. And then on the other part of the postcard there is this very short message about how I am very happy now, and I wish I could share that with them. So it's all about communication, really, because I think that we often are a bit afraid or are scared to share things about who we really are, things that are deeply us, scared of reaction, of not being accepted, especially by the loved ones, the people that we love.
I am actually an art therapist, and one of our conferences we were doing things about the interaction between children and parents, and that kind of direct looking, which never happens as we grow older because it's too intense, and so very much they were looking straight out. But with these, I called them sidelong because these are more looking out at you and you're not quite sure. I mean, hopefully they're kind of slightly seductive. But also I feel very often images of male figures are kind of something about the power and the strength, but I wanted there to be something quite submissive and maybe a bit vulnerable about them.
Art is therapy, totally, and I didn't always know it. I had a difficult childhood and a bipolar mother, no art, no music in my home, but I found art and I absolutely love it. And an awful lot went on in between, but I'll just go straight to my brain tumour. Everything I was doing in life was threatened. I have a mask from my radiotherapy in my studio now, and I found I was using masks without realising that they were referring to what I've been through.
I am neither LGBT nor Q. I am a huge ally. So I'm thinking about what it's like to be a gay kid, especially back in the day. I had a message on Facebook from an elder gay man who lives in America, and he says it's so much better than I could say it. The painful part of being a queer kid is not in the knowing that you're queer, it's in the not knowing. You know you're different, but you don't know why. The other kids know you're different too. In fact, they never let you forget it. But no one gives you a language for it. No one gives you a mirror. So, and I have tons and tons of junk that I've been collecting since I was a kid. So it all comes into practice. It's not appropriation, it's appreciation.
James Gray, who's one of the psychologists here, he stopped me. He said, "This is so spot on with what all our work is at the moment." And I said, wow, my reading of it has been a little bit different, but it is to do with conversion therapy.
I guess the tower really represents your whole life and your whole personality and your inner being. Being struck by lightning, basically. And it's based on the Tower, the tarot card, which is a card that no one likes to pick, you know, it's disaster, it's hence the darkness around it. And I think that these kind of therapies, they're like it's a punishment. And it's shocking that it's not that long ago.